everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I've sat here and recorded a message for you, and you've been seeing the weekly post that I put out for a series called Inner Peace and Security, where I talk about the different energies that are attracted that can help you through that process of finding inner peace and security in times of uncertainty, as well as in times where things are just fine, but to maintain that sense for yourself. And in that series, we talk about asking yourself questions, understanding what things mean to you before you jump into yes or no yes, making a decision, to make sure that you're analyzing the process, not only through your spiritual body, but as well as your intellect. Recently, I had posted in one of my stories about the heart, the mind being a place, or the heart being a place where the mind comes to rest. And that is all about heart-mind reasoning, or mind-heart reasoning, however you want to say it, but I say heart-mind reasoning. So we bring the heart into it, we make sure that we critically think about a process, and then we make a decision on it. So check that out if you're interested, or ponder about heart-mind reasoning if it is something that you find helpful in making decisions. So the reason I'm discussing things with you today is because I want to talk about the energy that's happening right now. It's a bit chaotic. There's a lot of things going on, and I think I've been saying that for a while, that the energy is very chaotic, and it's up to you to kind of step into that chaos and find order for yourself within that chaos. But in general, I want to say that I believe the United States, without getting into politics, is going through a dark night of the soul. And I also want to say that I don't think it's the United States alone. It seems that it's a global thing that's happening in different countries, where shadow aspects are coming to the surface, and it is up to us to figure out what's going on and how to react to that information, and not demonize the information, but really assess it and see how it was created by our own neglect as human beings having this experience on this planet. And also, when you want to go from the microcosm, us or countries, into the macrocosm, the planet having this experience as well. The planet is going through a dark night of the soul. It's trying to evolve spiritually, and it's affecting all of us. And let's get back to that point of how accountability is very important, and understanding that we all, on a subconscious level, on an energetic level, contribute to the energy that we experience in the world. And if you are to change the world, you have to start with yourself. And I think a lot of people neglect that aspect and just want to try to fix the world without fixing themselves. And by fixing yourself, I don't mean that there's something wrong with you or that you're not complete. By fixing yourself, I mean taking time to get to know yourself, taking time to understand the shadow aspects of yourself, where you need to heal and grow, so you don't project that out onto the world. And when it does come back to you, you know or understand that this is what's happening, and I need to implement steps where I can correct that situation. And so, because I'm trying to understand this, I want to share information with you that may help you through this process. And so I want to start off saying that I got this deck. It's from, it's called Compassion Cards, and it's from Pima Chodron. I hope I am pronouncing her name correctly. And what this is about teaching for awakening the heart in everyday life. And so I went through the deck, or the deck of cards, or the information, and I pulled out some cards or some quotes or information that I really connected with. And I decided through that process to have something I called random conversations. As if you've been following me on my other platforms, you probably know I love conversations. I love just talking about information. And one of the things that I do is I tend to play devil's advocate, or I try to play devil's advocate. I think I play devil's advocate, but I'm not really sure, because the other person can just be like, no, you're closed in your, whoever I'm having the conversation with. Anyway, it's neither there or whatever the saying is. But the point I'm making is it's important to ask each other questions and to challenge our narrative and the narrative. So our narrative is the narrative that we have within our bubble, within our echo chamber, and our belief systems. And that can come or stem from our foundation, our tribe, or the people that we usually gravitate or connect with. And if you don't allow yourself to step out of that, you'll just be thinking and repeating the same thing all the time. And if you start to be a parrot and not really having sensible information that can help you to flourish, help your community to flourish, and help to change the world. And that's why it's important to know yourself, to understand, are you in an echo chamber? Are you open to getting different perspectives and analyzing that information and seeing if there are things that are relatable to you or not? And also, within that process, it's important not to take anecdotal situations and apply them to the masses. Just because you're having an experience or a small group is having an experience doesn't mean that's the experience of the complete group. So we have to take some of those things into account when we're making decisions on how to take information and to finally act on that information. So that's important, and I hope I was coherent in my explanation of that. So doing these random conversations, so as I mentioned before, I took a group of cards that I felt connected to my heart and my soul and critical thinking and all that, and I put them in a bag and I shook them, and I picked one out today. And so the commentary on this card is, don't ponder others' weak points, becoming arrogant about your own accomplishments. Wow. Don't ponder others. I don't know if you can see it because it's kind of bright, but what is this saying to you? All right, I will repeat it again. Don't ponder others' weak points, becoming arrogant about your own accomplishments. This is something that is, I think we've all been guilty of at some point in our lives, where we believe that we are right, we are better, and because we believe we're right, it stems to I am better than. It can come from different spaces, and this energy is warning you against doing that, because it can get you to be arrogant. And when you're arrogant about your belief system or information or your foundation, it's hard to input new information in there that you would take and analyze, because you're like, I know better, I know this is what's going on, and so on and so on, so blah blah blah, you can't tell me this, and so on. So it's an energy that's easily taken by us because we're human, right? We are flawed. We are attempting not to be flawed, maybe. I don't know what your path is, but maybe that's your space to understand where your flaws are, which is an aspect of the dark night of the soul, to understand our flaws, to understand where we've been damaged, so we can heal that information. And if you've listened to me, or if you're familiar with my work, you know I don't believe the ego is a bad thing. I just believe that you have to understand when to put your ego in check, and it shouldn't be the other way around, where your ego is the puppet master of your actions, versus you take your ego as something that can be constructive for you when you need it to be, and through that and heart-to-mind reasoning, you can make decisions that are helpful not only to you, but of value to the society, to the collective, and to the healing of the planet and the evolution and the growth of the planet on a spiritual level, as well as on a scientific, and continue on, into the moral and the ethical aspects of things. So by, again, not becoming arrogant about your own accomplishments, you give room for other people to open up discussions. Let's say, for example, you're really well accomplished and you're always talking about your accomplishments, and you put that out in, let's just say, social media, right? So there is a perspective of you that you're selling, that you're providing to an audience or to whoever comes to look at your social media platform. And by doing that, you are probably taking away, there are going to be people who come to you and say, oh, I want to connect with you because I want that level of accomplishment, right? But you're also kind of like keeping people away who probably, like, oh man, this person is just like too accomplished for me. There's no way they'll want to talk to me. There's no way they're going to want to help me. There's no way my ideas they're gonna think my ideas are stupid. They're gonna think that what I'm saying is small, and so on and so on. So you're kind of like taking that energy and possibly projecting it out there. And is that good for you? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And if it's not something that you think is good for you, then how do you change that? How do you stop being arrogant? How do you understand that your accomplishments are not just yours alone, but are part of a collective? Like, people helped you to get there. For example, the CEO of the company, right, can't do everything by themselves. Let's say you you own a company, or you're the CEO of a company. Even though you make the big decisions for the company, you're also not making the product. You're also not the one purchasing the product. There are people who are helping you along the way to reach your goal, to have a sense of accomplishment. And it's important for you to acknowledge that, because when you acknowledge that, you're more likely to see the value in people and not put them down because they haven't reached your level, or not take advantage of them because they don't know what you know, which is something that happens a lot. Like, I've had conversations with people, for example, who are like, well, you know what? It's not my problem that this person isn't aware enough of this situation, so I'm just going to take advantage of it. And it happens a lot in business, and that's why capitalism has a bad name. I'm sure capitalism has a bad name for other things, but that's something that's coming to mind. People taking advantage of each other, and that's why we need regulations, and that's why free trade will never work, per some of the arguments I've heard. But the thing is, if you're coming from a human perspective and you understand that your accomplishments are in relation to someone else's accomplishments, there's no reason for you to take advantage of them. And if, like, you decide you want to create something and people find out like you're kind of taking advantage of them, right? Somebody else is going to come up and say, oh, I can do this and I won't take advantage. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, and I don't want to do that, so I'm going to stay focused and go back to this card. Don't ponder others' weak points, becoming arrogant about your own accomplishments. And I feel like this is something that's happening all the time globally, especially when it comes to politics, especially when it comes to diverse interpretations, anecdotal experiences that are being put as collective experiences, all these different things that instead of like working together and seeing, this perspective is workable, this perspective is not workable, and seeing how we can come together in the middle and find some balance where we can work together. Right now, the energy feels like we're constantly being torn apart at the seams. And It reminds me of the Gemini card in the tarot, which is the Lover's card, and it's always pictured with someone standing in the middle, two people to their left and their right, and there's an angel at the top, or there's an entity or an energy at the top, like watching and observing this whole thing and just like, what's going on, or trying to figure out if the person is going to come to a decision or helping them come to a decision. And I feel like that's where we're at right now, that going through the dark night of the soul, we're being pulled in directions that are extreme. And it's really important for us to kind of find that middle ground so we don't talk shit about each other, to each other, or about people who don't follow our narrative, who don't follow the main narrative, but instead start to listen to each other. What are each other's concerns about something, and how do we come to a space where we can find balance, where we can respect people enough, groups or energies enough that we're willing to listen and work together to grow and to evolve, versus continuing to divide through the different layers of our being, of ourselves. And the different layers can be a lot of the identity aspects of things, and then just splitting it down. Like, first you see yourself as a planet, you know, who has individuals living on this earth, and we're all having a unique experience and we're trying to figure things out, right? Or it becomes more not about the individual and how it connects to the collective, but more about the tribe, more, and it becomes like a bunch of different sects or tribes or levels of beings who are constantly fighting each other and trying to prove that they're right about X, Y, and Z, and this is why they're right about X, Y, and Z, instead of us all understanding that we have faults, we make mistakes. How do we move away? How do we heal those mistakes and move forward in our lives and still respect the fact that we're all slightly at different levels of understanding what those mistakes are, rather than pointing them out and saying, you're evil, you're this, I don't want to use the term because I don't want this video to be about politics, but you're this and that, and I'm this and that, and you know, it's underlying, you don't know it, all these things that we throw at each other. So to end this conversation, I want to say that to keep Pema Chodron's message in mind, don't ponder others' weak points, becoming arrogant about your own accomplishments. Instead, look at the accomplishments of others and celebrate them with your own accomplishments. And I promise you, you will be able to grow and flourish from that, versus constantly taking jabs at each other and pointing out the worst aspects of ourselves to each other. That is only going to bring more trauma, more diversity in not a good way. Like, it's going to be just more divisive is the word I want to use, rather than diversity. So anyway, I hope this energy was helpful to you. I hope this chat was helpful to you. And I hope that you're able to understand what I was talking about, because sometimes I do go off on a tangent, and that you take time to critically analyze what I've said here today and to go within and see if it is relevant in your life. And if it is, how do you step out of your own shadow and into a space where you acknowledge your shadow, your fears, and everything that's going on with you, and take time to heal yourself, and then give yourself time to see the world through different lenses. Even though things may be chaotic, you're still able to find joy and love in the world, because love will always conquer everything. All right, I will talk to you again. I love you. Take care of yourself.